topic being on tariffs. I want to thank you all for coming and apologize in advance for any rough spots. This is the first event that we've done this way, but there really is a fantastic and talented group on our panel, and presenters, business owners, and academics in the area of discussion, and our two Congressman Latimer's two task forces, jobs in the economy and foreign and military affairs are key movers behind the event today. So we want to thank them for helping arrange the program. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce Congressman George Latimer.
Thank you, Rob. Rob Hawk, our Senior Advisor on Policy. And I want to thank you all for coming out today. Fortunately, there was no snow in the forecast, as we've seen regularly. But today's a very important day for us to have dialogue and conversation here amongst the people who are in the room who are in Westchester's business community and academic community. First, I have a couple of thanks that I want to give out. Let me thank both of the two Citizen Task Force leaders who are the co-chairs of this panel. You're going to see them up here, and you're going to see the ability and the wisdom that they bring to the table. I'm very fortunate to have Asha Castleberry Hernandez chairing our Foreign Affairs and Military Affairs Task Force, and Jane Veron, who chairs our Economy and Jobs. They're both very talented women. Now, we have the bios on your table on a sheet. I don't want to try to do an injustice to them by giving you one or two lines of what their backdrop is. They're both very talented individuals, and I'm very fortunate that they're giving their time voluntarily to do this. So Jane, Asha, thank you very much. And also in the room, I saw Jonathan Lewis, who heads our Citizens Task Force on Infrastructure. Jonathan, wherever you are, give us a wave. And thank you for your service. And my team will catch me if there are other people that are also on it. We have members of our various task forces as well. And they're giving voluntary time to put their energy and their intelligence and abilities toward discussing public policy issues and then determining what can we do in Washington about those policy issues. We're joined by a number of elected officials. And I saw a few of them while I were in, but I'm going to ask any elected officials to please stand, and then I can certainly recognize you. I saw members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators with us. The Honorable Nancy Barr is here. Honorable Anant Nambiar is with us as well. And I know we're expecting a few other colleagues to join us. Am I missing anybody else from the podium here? But both Nancy and Anant have responsibilities that are significant in county government, and we're very grateful that they took time out to be here today. And then I have members of my team that have put in yeoman's work to make this happen. Michelle Gawanter. Michelle, thank you for your leadership on this. Ellen Hendricks, our district office director, is here. And this is one of those all hands on deck things. There's really nobody in the White Plains office today or the Co-op City office, but I know we have Daphne Centellas here, Hannah Haig is with us here, Kelly Saunders, up from Washington, one of our legislative analysts, Jeremy Hoffner is here, and if I missed anybody else on the team, forgive me, who we missed? Oh, Tara Conti, right up the front. All of these folks are really terrific people to work with, and I've been blessed by having wonderful team members. And in my prior responsibilities as county executive, I have people who I worked with who are still friends, and some of them are here today. Richard Gibbons, who heads up economic development for the county. Gary Wilson Asher is here, and he has program and policy leadership. And again, with the lights in my eyes, I'm not sure if I'm missing any of your colleagues, but I would hope that there'll be some recognition as we go through. I said Ali Rusteo from the Westchester County Board of Legislators is here, and others. Now, those things may seem like an obligatory thing you do in a meeting like this, but these meetings don't happen unless those individuals put in their time and effort. So we owe them a debt of gratitude. And I also want to give a shout out to Judge Kathy Davidson. Kathy Davidson she's an outstanding jurist, and she heads down the Judicial Institute in Pace, and she brought us Dean Brescia. as a panelist. And we're very grateful for his legal skills and being able to help interpret what has just happened in the Supreme Court. And Kathy made that connection. Dean Brescia, thank you. We have some academic folks who have doctoral degrees that I pumped out at going for. So I have great respect for the fact that they went on to have achievement in academia and now are in very many various institutes of higher learning. They'll all be introduced as panel members in a minute or two. I promise I'm not going to take an hour and 47 minutes here at the podium, but I do want to just share one more thought before we begin the substance of the program. I have been in Washington now as a United States representative for just a shade over a year. I have 35 plus years of experience at other levels of government. As a councilman, county legislator, you look at the resume, it looks like you can't hold a job. What I've seen in Washington that disturbs me, and this is not a partisan statement because I see examples of this on both sides of the aisle. I see an emphasis on performance art rather than an emphasis on performance. What is performance in government? Do you believe that's true? I welcome it. What is performance in government? Performance is how you manage a budget, how you allocate resources, and how you implement ideas operationally to achieve an end. You're fighting COVID, you have to test people, you have to vaccinate people, and you have to secure them for their health. That is a functional, operational end that a government has a responsibility to. One example. We have performance is legislation, is to sit and craft legislation that has broad-based support, which almost by definition means bipartisan, but legislation that we think can advance the interest in a particular policy area. What I see too much of is performance art. If you say the outrageous thing, you get on television. You have your cable news stations of the far left and the far right, and they're happy to showcase the people who have the loudest voices, perhaps an interesting demographic, and not necessarily do those people put the time and energy and effort into the actual performance of the responsibilities. Today is about performance toward end product. A discussion about a very important issue that is part of the political debate, but also has a real-world impact on businesses, on our international global relationships around the world, and how we craft, and how we understand the issues requires us to spend a couple of hours with intelligent spokespeople discussing amongst ourselves things, not just run to the microphones and get your face, your voice in the meeting. So I appreciate this meeting for that reason, over and above the fact that the topic itself is very important. So now I'm going to ask the two people who are going to lead us through this dialogue, Asha Castleberry-Hernandez and Jane Barron, to join us here. Again, two outstanding individuals I'm very grateful to call friends, and I'm very grateful to have in positions of responsibility. Asha, come on up. Microphone is yours. Yes. You can take it out.
Here? Are we good?
Just power them on.
Power them on.
There's a button.
Testing. Are we on? No.
Good morning, everyone.
Awesome. Terrific. George, first of all, Congressman Latimer, thank you so very much for representing us so well and for inviting us, those in your district, to share with you and everyone the challenges that we face. So we so appreciate the opportunity for this dialogue. My name is Jane Barron. I am co-founder and CEO of the Acceleration Project. What makes the conversation today relevant is we're talking so much about small business owners, and 14 years ago, I started a nonprofit called the Acceleration Project, and we empower under-resourced small businesses across the country. We provide expert business advisory services, and everything we do is to foster economic mobility and wealth creation. So it's wonderful that we can have a conversation today to talk about the impact of tariffs on small business. By way of background, I'm also from the private sector and have had several roles in the public sector. I most recently was mayor of Scarsdale and sat on the U.S. Small Business Administration's Investment Capital Advisory Committee. So all of that knowledge has helped inform the work that we do on a daily basis. And what I'd like to do now is to invite to the stage two small business owners who are awesome, who are from the area, and I'm going to introduce them as they walk up. And they're going to be able to share with you the real life stories of what it's like to be a small business owner and operate in this landscape. So first, Ellen Sledge, if you could come join us on the stage. Ellen is the owner of Penny Lick Ice Cream Company, a peanut and tree nut-free ice cream brand based in Westchester County. In the last 13 years, Penny Lick has grown from just a push cart at a farmer's market to a small chain of shops in Hastings, Mamaroneck, Ossining. I hope you've gotten to sample. She has a catering business and a wholesale business. During the busy season, Penny Lick employs 30 individuals and has proudly employed over 90 since inception. Ellen's brought old-fashioned ice cream back to our county. Ellen and I met when she was a TAP client in 2019-2020. She is a rock star, and she used her time with TAP to tighten efficiency and grow product offerings. And we're so excited to listen to what Ellen will share. Okay, next up, I'd like to invite, let's applaud for Ellen. Next up, I'd like to invite my new friend, Peter Herrero. I feel like we're already bonded and connected. He's another small business owner and founder. He launched New York Hospitality Group in 1986 and grew it into 6 divisions serving the New York tri-state area. Located in White Plains, New York Hospitality employs 51 full-time professionals and 150 part-time staff. And you'll definitely recognize some of these names. They're his. Sam's of Gedney Way, the Great American Barbecue Company, Caperberry Events, C.B. Rich Mansion, and Everyday Healthy Cafe, along with a hospitality consulting service he runs. Peter brings a wealth of knowledge in the restaurant and hospitality space, and we are so thrilled that he is here.
Thank you so much, Shane. Good morning. So my name is Asha Casper Hernandez, and I am so delighted to be here and present myself as the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs, Military Affairs Task Force. And George, thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. The opportunity to do this as a Army veteran, and also as a national security foreign policy expert means a lot to me, especially for the fact that we have the opportunity to discuss these issues in our district. So thank you once again. So our panel will focus on economic analysis, mainly from the global tariffs. And we have 2 amazing panelists. One is Ann Rutledge, who is the CEO of Credit Spectrum Corporation. And then also we have Victor Peter Kamani, who is the Dean of Mercy University School of Business. But before we start with our panel, we will first begin with remarks from Raymond Brescia, who is the Associate Dean of Albany Law School, and he will provide a discussion on the legal analysis of learning resources versus President Trump. Thank you.
So it felt a little bit like the last kid picked in dodgeball up against the wall there. So hi, good morning, thanks everyone for having me, thanks for coming, good to see everybody. So I've been given a tight 7 minutes to talk to you about a 170-page Supreme Court decision, which, believe it or not, I can actually do it. So we take us back almost a year, about a year, when President Trump started to impose tariffs on various grounds against various countries for various reasons. And mostly he invoked a statute which we've all now become familiar with, IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Those tariffs were sweeping tariffs imposed on virtually every country that you've heard of and a lot you've never heard of before. Some of whom have significant trade imbalances with us, many do not. But the idea, sort of consistent with a pledge that the president had made on the campaign trail, was to use the tariffs, something he's described as the most beautiful word in the English language. I would submit that perhaps suggests he has a limited vocabulary, but I digress. But what the challenge is, it wasn't always clear that those challenges, the legal challenges to the tariffs, would win out. And there are lots of reasons why even a casual observer of the Supreme Court might believe that it was likely that the president was going to win, and for a number of reasons. First off, a sense that the president has what we call plenary powers, that there are some powers that, even though not mentioned in the Constitution, are nevertheless embedded in the presidency, particularly dealing with foreign affairs, foreign power, foreign economic trade. And so first off, you might say, well, this could easily swing in the president's favor because of that, and for that reason alone. Secondly, you might say, well, there's a part of IEPA, you think about it, emergency economic powers that the Supreme Court and courts in general, fairly, I think, are relatively deferential to the executive branch when it comes to emergencies. And even Justice Kagan and Justice Sotomayor in oral arguments on the cases that challenged the tariffs, said, hey, we understand that there is deference to the executive branch to declare emergencies. But nevertheless, the court sort of discounted those arguments, the majority of the Supreme Court discounted those arguments, and read the powers available to the president to impose tariffs incredibly narrowly, appropriately, in my opinion. And so we have to do a couple of things to understand how they ruled. And we're going to do a little law class, a little Latin class. And first, the statute in question said that the president, when declaring an emergency, could, by means of instructions, licenses, or otherwise, take the following actions: investigate, block during the pendency of an investigation, regulate, direct to compel, nullify, void, prevent, or prohibit any acquisition, holding, withholding, use, transfer, withdrawal, transportation, importation, or exportation of, or dealing in, or exercising any right, power, or privilege with respect to transactions, blah, 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 right? Now, Justice Kagan, in her concurring opinion, said that there were 9 verbs, 11 nouns, and powers and activities, and if you combine them, 99 authorities, right? 99 authorities, but tariffs ain't one of them. And so, and I think that and this is where we're going to get into Latin here. The term for this is expressio unius est exclusio alterius, right? Those of you who may have forgotten your high school Latin, it basically means, hey, when Congress regulates something and it lists something explicitly, lists many powers explicitly, the exclusion of powers, right, means that it knew how to authorize some powers, but didn't, right? And that's, a close reading, and I think a fair reading of IEPA is that it doesn't authorize powers, the tariff power. right? And so the only thing that the Solicitor General, John Sauer, could say was, well, it says regulate, and regulate allows the president to impose tariffs, okay? Here's the problem with that argument, right? Tariffs aren't there. Court has never interpreted the term regulate to include tariffs or taxes. And the tariff power is explicitly listed in the Constitution for Congress. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, it says Congress has the power to impose duties, right? Which over 250 years has been interpreted to mean to impose tariffs. So we can get into some of the details, but I think I'm going to stop there in my tight 7 to say, so we'll get about, and we'll talk about what it means now, but for the meantime, the tariffs imposed under IEEPA were held to be illegal and in many ways unconstitutional, and that leaves us with what Justice Coney Barrett and Justice Kavanaugh picked up in his dissent with a mess. So with that cliffhanger, I'm going to pass it back to you, Jane.
Oh, yes. You're welcome.
Ray, that was awesome, and you did it so well in a short period of time, and I'm managing our time right here. We have 10 minutes for the 3 of us, and what I'd like to do now is for us to take the concept of tariffs really down to what the impact is on a daily basis in the small business community. So in a moment, we're going to hear from Ellen and Peter, but I want to set the stage for you, because we know how important small businesses are to the fabric of our nation. 36.2 million small businesses in our country. That means that 99.9% of all U.S. businesses are small. Small businesses employ 62.3 million people. That is 46% of all private sector employees. And small businesses contribute to roughly 44% of U.S. GDP. Those are all really big numbers. But we also need to know, at the very micro level, how very hard it is to be a small business owner. At TAP, we get to work with thousands and thousands of small business owners. And what we find is that these are amongst the most determined, resilient, inspirational individuals you will ever meet. And they manage daily complexities. They have issues with equipment failures, labor shortages, serving customers well, how do I get capital, how do I manage cash flow? So every day is a challenge. When tariffs hit, TAP, who walks alongside small business owners, said we're going to partner together. And we work with so many to devise strategies and plans. Recently, we conducted a webinar, and the webinar launched with a question. How many of you, what percentage of you have your cost structure impacted by tariffs? And we quickly saw that 70% already felt the pain. And then 20% more said that they expect the cost structure to inflate within the next couple of months. In addition, separate from the dollars, we asked the small business owners to describe how they feel. We did a beautiful word cloud. Words like worried, terrified, unsure, confused, nervous, angry, mystified, devastated. But the one word that dominated was uncertain. It is very hard to manage a business in a volatile environment. So now, I turn to my small business owners, and I'll ask Ellen first, would you describe the impact tariffs have had on your business?
It is my job as somebody who owns a lot of ice cream shops to smile at all times and tell you everything's great. I have been told from my PR person that I need to be more positive. That being said, it is the same for ice cream as it is for your local nail salons, as it is for your local pizzerias and dry cleaners, as it is for anybody running a small business. Tariffs means, simply put, higher prices. And it is one more volatile piece of information that we have to manage in our day-to-day. I'll give you just a small example, because as a small business owner, well trained by app, I always know my numbers. In November 2024, buying 11 pounds at a time quantities of 58% dark chocolate was approximately $90. By May 2025, it was $220. How much can I charge for that ice cream cone? The same can be said for many of our ingredients that we simply don't grow here. Coffee, sugar, tea. My receipts are much higher than they used to be, and I buy from wholesale suppliers, but never in my receipts does it say what the tariff is. So some of this may simply be instability and raising prices because you can, but it's always being raised on the backs of small businesses. The end result for all of us is less people coming in the door. I know an awful lot of small business owners, we talk all the time, we are constantly consoling one another. Maybe I barter pints of ice cream for bottles of liquor with the store next door. What it means to them is that 20% or 20 to 22% less sales. What it means to us is 15 to 30% less sales, depending on whether or not I'm talking about my ice cream store or our catering line. And that is a big, big lump to swallow, but as a mom of 3, I absolutely understand it. I am doing these same cost-cutting measures in my own house. So it means also, right now, as I look to 2026 and 2027, the expansion plans that I was considering are all on hold. The number of people I will hire for our temporary season will be about 20% less. It's tough times all around. And again, the issue is not just that the tariffs are there, but that they are high and wildly unstable, and nobody can write a budget to that. I'm very positive.
It's so important to hear from boots on the ground. Peter, is your mic on already? No, I'm going to pass this to Peter. He's going to tell you from his perspective.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, George and Jane and everyone, for listening, because it feels like we're on the front lines. And I don't think what people realize is what's going on. It's tariffs, but the compounding effect of the quality, quantity, the price, the availability, the weather. You think this is bad? Wait 4 to 5 months. These storms in Florida are going to kill the citrus market. Where are we going to replace it? We believe in fair trade, in balance. We balance our budgets. We try to stay profitable. We believe in this, but when you're putting, I never thought being an entrepreneur, I'm okay working 80 hours, not to work a 40-hour week. I know. It's part of my mental illness. It is what it is. It should be part of my ADD and everything else that I have. But I didn't think it was going to be an obstacle course. The expansion, development, it's such an inconsistent market and unfriendly. Honestly, we have 9 cappuccino espresso machines. I have to take one offline that's worth $25,000. Buy one that's $35,000 to cannibalize it, to repair 3 other machines, just to keep them alive. They're 6, 7, and 8 years old. They should last 15 years. So price is one thing, but the inconsistency, it's like taking a trip. Where are you going? I don't know. What's the type of breath? I don't know. How are we dressed? I don't know. What vehicle we have? I don't know. The weather could change. I don't mean, I'm trying to stay light, as you say, but 40 years in business, and I love hospitality. You can can tell we love it, but this is hard. We need guardrails so we can run fast and well. So we don't trip and we don't fall. We don't want to hurt each other. But the guardrails shouldn't be obstacles. And I'm going to stick on this compounding effect. This is much worse than you think it's going to be. And I'm not blaming anyone, by the way. I'm not. Okay? I just want a fair playing ground. I'm sorry. I want to, yeah. Thank you.
Just to wrap up this initial conversation, what we're hearing is this uncertainty and the inability to plan has made it so incredibly hard for the scrappiest, most determined small business owners. And when Peter referenced the equipment, he can't get his parts. And when Ellen referenced, like, do I expand? She doesn't know what the future looks like. And so that is, really that's the environment in which we operate. And so I'd love to now turn the conversation over to Asha, who will talk about it from a policy perspective.
Thank you so much. So our panel is going to look at it more of a foreign policy context, right? The global trends, the shift we're seeing from the post-Cold War all the way up to now. So to watch that coming out of the post-Cold War, we had the international rule-based order that promoted free trade, and to see the leader of the free world impose global tariffs or in pursuit of it is just really wild in my own opinion, and against our norms and traditions. So, as a former appointee for President Biden, when I worked at the State Department, that was one of our priorities, was to promote free and fair trade. That was definitely something that we were looking into and working very closely with the trade admission during that time. So it's just to see the shift now to President Trump, and especially was very specific in his 2025 national security strategy, indicating that in terms of economic protectionism, he is going to be in pursuit of global tariffs. So I want to now shift or move along the conversation to my two panelists to discuss these dynamics, and especially with regards to the recent SCOTUS decision, and look at the long-term impacts. And how does this impact our relationship with our allies and our partners like United Kingdom, Japan, and Canada? So, Anne, would you like to start first?
Thank you so much, Asha, and I would, does this work?
Turn the button on. Just turn the switch on.
Okay, great, thank you so much, Asha, and thank you, Congressman Latimer, and just before answering your question, can I do a shout out?
Yes.
To Thomas Romero, who was my student. I've taught 5,000 people. I'm excited. I'm also a small business. Yes. I'm also a small business. Can you hear me now? No. Okay. All right, but I want to give a shout out to Thomas Romero because he brought me here. I've taught 5,000 people in my area of expertise, and he's the only one out of 5,000 that is really focused on the word performance. Yes. On here. So in terms of relationships, I think I have one snide comment to make, which is that IEPA seems to be part of a larger package of the International Empire Protection Act. And I think that the way that our relationship in a political, geopolitical, and economic sense is being redefined is completely abhorrent to our closest allies in the UK and Japan. And as a credit expert, which I do, it's sowing chaos into that conversation.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity for me to share my impression because I'm a globalist. I really believe in global trade. I think the system of global trade were established by the United States as the leader post-World War II. It's surprising that now we are turning against those systems that we actually implemented and from which we have really benefited. I think the US will remain the strongest economy in the world because of we believe in free market. I think we should not turn against that. And we cannot blame our problems on the rest of the world. I will start by saying that I think that this moment, I would encourage everybody to go back and take Econ 101, because that's really what we are talking about. If we believe in market economy, the government should stay out of it. The government should actually promote free market, free trade, because anything else is just adding friction to the market. And here's the impact on small businesses. You are going to see more bankruptcy, unfortunately. You are going to have more unemployed, and ultimately who end up paying for this? It's really still the American people, because we have to take care of those people when they are filing unemployment taxes. Let's let the market play. We have the best capital market. That's the strength of the United States, and I think if we this is an own goal. The tariffs, if you love soccer, right? This is really an own goal. We are imposing taxes on people. That's in economic terms, that's just reducing demand. Meaning, we have to make budget choices. Our salary won't increase as fast as inflation. So our choices is really to cut on spending. Meaning when we're going less to restaurants, small businesses. That means those small businesses cannot employ people. That means it's just a snowballing effect, right? And I really believe that a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think we have to go back to those principles.
Thank you. And just going back to the point of, what we're seeing right now, the new dynamic, the challenge of the old system, especially when it comes to international norms, new standards. There's been a lot of criticism that the World Trade Organization has not been able to keep up with the system, and they're just right now trying to figure out how we can better adapt to a new international system, especially with the fact that we're seeing like what's happening in the United States with regards to President Trump and who's slapping on new tariffs, and then also China, who's not necessarily playing fair. So what can an organization like the WTO help adapt to this moment, and how does that impact our district? Thank you.
One of the surprising, can you hear me? One of the surprising and pleasing developments in the WTO is that it's now headed by a very, very intelligent economist, Nigerian economist and a woman. And what she says is the WTO was not actually, and the system was not actually working in the past. Otherwise, we wouldn't see the repetition of the status quo. So I think she's quite open-minded to change. But I would say, in this regard, and perhaps because it's what I know, that I think we need to look at trade, and I hope that the WTO does this, to look at trade in connection with credit. The thing that I didn't mention is that the UK and Japan are our biggest buyers of US treasuries outside the United States. That's a problem if we annoy them. China has already sold a lot of its holdings. There is a direct relationship between access to credit, to capital, and to the future health of small businesses. So I think what we need to do locally is to connect these dots a little bit more, spider-like, a little bit more carefully, and see how we can leverage the strengths we still have in our capital markets to either compensate for trade or perhaps build a better structure.
So we are the global economy is competitive. China is a formidable adversary. So if we want to compete, we have to make those investments at home to be competitive. We are not going back into constraining China. So we have to really think about how do we make our economy a bit more competitive. We have to invest more in small businesses. We have to allow us as small businesses to innovate, to hire domestically so that we can be more competitive abroad. That could be done.
why are we not educating more engineers? Just because access to education is expensive in the US. This has nothing to do with China. Why don't we give more access to credit to small businesses? This has nothing to do with China. So if we can implement policies that can make the national economy more competitive, I think we can address China as a really formidable adversary. So now, looking at internationally, there are cyclical, I would say, changes happening around the world, and this is demographics. We are having fewer babies in the Western world. That will have significant impact on our economy. So we have to think about our immigration policy. Is our immigration policy in alignment with how the global economy is moving? Where are the future of the workforce? Why can we engage more with Africa? In 20 years, 40% of the workforce is going to come from Africa. But we still look at Africa as, this continent that we don't understand. We have to engage more, because that's where the workforce is going to come from. So engaging with China to compete against China is to diversify our sources of natural resources. And for me, from our perspective, America really has to engage Africa really strategically.
Thank you. And Brandon, would you like to make a comment on this question? Especially looking at international law. Yes.
Well, so
Oh, sure.
there are with WTO, there are international issues, but these are very domestic issues, right? And sort of outward facing. And there are other laws that the president can invoke. And I don't know if you want me to sort of talk about where we are now with that, and then sort of practically what's going to happen to the $175 billion that was collected. That was, our money, right? So immediately after the Supreme Court's decision on February 20th, the president said that he was going to impose new tariffs using other powers, other authorities, and there are some mechanisms, but there are procedural limits and hoops that the president and the administration has to go through to impose those tariffs. They haven't been challenged already. I'm sure they will be. The one that the sort of 15, it varies day to day whether it's a sort of 10% across the board or 15% across the board tariff under the Trade Act of 1974. That's capped at 15%, and it's 150 days, at which point the president has to get congressional authority to continue those. But then there are other mechanisms for reimposing tariffs that the president can try to invoke, but all with procedural hurdles. Okay, nothing can render any of the powers available. Nothing can render the past IEEPA tariffs legal. So there's by several accounts, there's $175 billion that have been collected illegally under that tariff regime. We would think that American businesses and maybe taxpayers could get that money back. Secretary of Treasury Bessent has said it's his sense that the American people will never see that money. The president says he thinks it's going to be tied up in the courts for 5 years. That's tragic. That's something clearly illegal, that they wouldn't respond and turn the money back to the American businesses who paid those tariffs and the taxpayers who ultimately often had those tariffs passed on, those costs passed on down to them. But there is a mechanism, but it's very narrow, specifically for the businesses that paid the tariffs. So if you're designated as the importer of record, you paid the tariffs, okay? You have to have records of that. You have to file a challenge. It looks like those challenges have to go, at least for now, through the Court of International Trade. Complex process. I would urge everybody who is a formal importer of record to consult counsel to try to do that. There's a 2-year statute of limitations for doing that. So if after those 2 years, you could never see that one. If you're further downstream from an importer of record, call your suppliers. Make sure they are filing those challenges. And if they say something like, well, it doesn't really matter because we just passed those charges on to you, then say, well, then I would like you to file those challenges and then pass the savings and the refunds back to us. So I think Congress could set up a facility where people could apply for those funds rather than filing individual lawsuits through the Court of International Trade. There's no reason why Congress couldn't do that. I would urge it to do so. I would also suggest to the President that there are prettier words in the English language like mellifluous or onomatopoeia, right? Or serendipity. And that there are better words like creativity, innovation, predictability, and entrepreneurship. And maybe we sort of move towards those words.
Thank you.
Ray, that was awesome. What we're going to do just for a few moments is talk a little bit about the reality for the remedies, as you heard from Ray, the complexity of it. But the reality is that most of the small businesses that you know and love are not the importer of record, and it's going to be hard to imagine how they're going to receive any remedy. So I thought it would be helpful to hear from Ellen and Peter just to talk about how they're planning. How are you thinking about that, and then how are you planning for the future?
I'll start. I have absolutely no hopes or designs whatsoever on getting any of the money back that I have lost through overspending on tariffs. And to be perfectly honest, when Dean Brescia says things like the Trump administration says that this could be tied up in courts for years, my answer to that is most small businesses don't have years. What you will see is an awful lot of brown paper on windows. You will wonder why your downtowns look so empty. And it is because the last thing that we had control over to a certain extent, our cost of goods sold, is no longer in our control. That is a hard lesson for even the scrappiest small business owners to learn. There are only so many ways we can pivot. And for those of us who are incredibly well organized with our numbers and our receipts, the headache of going through that for years for maybe just doesn't make any sense. And we have to just focus on what we can do now to control the bleeding.
Thank you. Remember, I'm an optimist. And the reason I say that is, Dean, I applaud your verbiage. But this can actually be a really exciting time. Remember, I'm an optimist. Imagine, we're not getting a refund. It's never happened. Half of us will be out of business, and it is what it is. But imagine if we could invest that into somehow reliable, I don't want to say cheap, reasonable utilities, healthcare, production, farms. $2,000 in my pocket, let's be honest, it's nothing. But I'm a plug out there for Con Ed. I know rates are insane. 9 years ago, I went through 4 programs real quick. It was about $50,000. We lowered our utilities from $175,000 to $95,000 in 18 months. Greater minds than not mine, by the way. I didn't know at the beginning what a variable speed motor was. I didn't know painting my roof white would make that much of a difference. But, Dean, and I say this to you and the educators and the think tanks, you have the solutions. We're your boots on the ground. Tell us how to use the power. Tell us how to, and I agree when we were talking about immigration. Who's going to do this work? It's our problem as a government or as a society to make it legal. People are coming here for jobs, and they want to work. My parents were them.
So what we hear is that our small business owners are heads down and continuing in the uncertain environment, making plans the way they had been making plans while they have been weathering this storm. But what I'm going to ask Ellen if she has ideas, as did Peter, in terms of like, if we don't think that small business will see the remedy, and for a whole host of reasons, we worked during COVID on PPP, how complicated that was. Not only, here we're not the importer of record, but the paperwork, but it's just something that all of the business owners with whom we work, that's not going to be an option, that there's going to be a remedy, in my view, according to most of the small business owners with whom we speak. Ellen, other ideas for what government could do to somehow help the community with the funds?
Well, to be perfectly honest, small businesses, even though we are responsible for 46% of employment approximately, we've never really had a playing field that was level in that regard. The Small Business Administration needs a new charter. The last time it was really thought through and defined as to what it does, what its role is, what it provides, how it can support small businesses. It was last written before the iPhone was invented. We don't live in that world anymore. An expanded small business administration that had resources and staff devoted to workforce competitiveness for small businesses versus large, that had resources and staff devoted to more grant and training opportunities. More of us should be blessed to have the services of an acceleration project or a Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses. There was a time where we talked about fanning all of that work out more and really reinvigorating and rechartering the Small Business Administration. I do think that we need it more than ever, given the current field we're in.
So to wrap up, these two fabulous small business owners have great ideas on how we can make things better. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will discuss the economic concerns looking forward. Each of you will only have less than 1 minute to answer. So, looking at the rise in uncertainty is leading to higher capital costs. For small businesses, the impact of a heightened perception of risk that can be quite severe, affecting firms' ability to borrow and their ability to self-fund because sales are down or margins are compressed. How vulnerable is this small business economy in the Bronx and Westchester County to these risks?
Extremely. Maybe you don't need the microphone to hear me say extremely vulnerable. But I would like to just point out one thing, and that is that this is not actually a new problem. Ellen said it's never been a level playing field. It's never been a level playing field. If you're going to read one book this year, read Fear City by a historian at Columbia. It is about how neoconservatism pivoted the original socially oriented progressive administration of New York City into a neoliberal structure with the support of both parties, and that has failed. It failed with the global financial crisis. I put my small business hat on right now, because I left Moody's Investor Service to solve a problem, and I'm here to tell you that we have structural issues in how we think about credit to small businesses. We need to wake up and look at the credit of small businesses in a new way, and to connect with what Dr. Petman Kimani said. I'm actually doing it now in Africa because they're more open-minded.
Let's go back to the basics. It's Econ 101. Provide access to capital. Make it, remove the red tapes. Provide grants to small businesses. We know small businesses employ 50% of the workforce in this country. So if we want a robust economy, we need to allow those small businesses to have access to capital, and quickly.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you so much to our wonderful panelists, these amazing economists, academics, foreign policy experts. Thank you, and I want to thank also my amazing task force. We have, again, Thomas Herrera, as well as we have Tony Corelli, as well as Andy Lamb, Betty Cotton, and William Trump. So thank you, and now we'll open up to Q&A.
So first of all, I also want to do a shout out to the Jobs and Economy Task Force. They have been working so much to advance our mandate. I just want to recognize, if you could just stand briefly for a second. Mia Beaver, I think you're here. Andrew Reichenstreich, you're here. Thank you. Mark McClain, Kansas, Asa Dorsen, Beth Chevry is not here. Darnell Lopez and Milan Nikki, who was the author of actually a big advertisement on your tables. There are opportunities for us to hear even more from you. There are surveys from the small business perspective and from the policy perspective. Please take those surveys. We're going to collect information, so don't forget to do that before you leave. So now what Asha and I have the pleasure of, first actually.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go,
Congressman Latimer.
you're gonna get this is I don't hear it live. I'll use my Little League manager voice, that's just fine. As we get ready for questions and answers, we have a couple of things to do. First of all, I want to recognize two other members of the county legislature that joined us. Shanae Williams is with us here. Shanae, thank you for coming. And Judah Holstein joined us as well. Judah, thank you for coming. We know that we have some business folks in the audience who are here who also want to share some of their thoughts. So we're going to let them individually, just for a couple seconds, express some of your concerns, and then we'll go to some of the questions that you've submitted, which will be read by, I guess, either Ellen or whoever else is going to do that response. It's going to be right up there. Very good. So for those business people who'd like to be recognized, come to the microphone, identify yourself and your business, and the experience that you want to share with the rest of us. Thank you very much. I want to get that.
Oliver Stauffer with PTI Inspected Systems. Thank you so much for putting this panel together today and for amplifying the energy around this issue. PTI, we just enacted our second layoff yesterday in the last 12 months. Demand has collapsed 35%. We're not a B2C business, as you folks are. We're B2B. We're upstream. You folks have stopped spending on CapEx. You've stopped investing in your businesses. CEOs are uncertain. They're not going to hire. They're not going to buy that long-term equipment. So PTI's inspection solutions that ends up in the life sciences industry, no one's buying it. We were a 50% export company, right? We have a forward operating center in Switzerland. I'm actually hiring personnel there right now because the demand in Europe seems to be nominal, whereas here domestically it has collapsed. So I just thank you so much for bringing and amplifying the attention to this issue and for doing whatever we can to see that we get back to a state of certainty. Thank you.
My name is Deborah Smoke. We are representing TurboFlow packaging machines. We're also a capital equipment manufacturer. We make packaging machines for mostly the pharmaceutical industry, so we're also a B2B, and they are our customers are an important segment of this economy. And what we're seeing is, for us, great uncertainty, as everybody mentioned. We contract with customers to build a machine which might take us a year, and over that year, the tariffs have changed, I don't know, 10 times? So we don't know, we don't know what our costs are gonna be. When we budget for a project and when we charge our customers for a project. The other thing is that we bring in many things from overseas that are not available here, the stainless steel, the electronics, other specialized components. Our competitors, who are mostly European, buy those without the tariffs. And then they somehow are able to bring their equipment into this, sell their equipment into our customers without tariffs. They have their methods, I don't know what they are, but as a small company, we just don't have access to that knowledge. And we would like to have somebody to turn to advise us, to give us a little bit of, way to think about this and have a better strategy.
Do we have other small business owners in the audience who want to share?
Thank you for this information and this roundtable, which is really important. My name is Sonia Montano. I am the president of Westchester Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but I am also the vice president of Montano Wood Care Corp. Recently, on February 5th, we had a Hispanic business roundtable where we share experiences, challenges, and priorities, and opportunities that we have. On the challenges, one of the biggest one was the tariff. The tariff that have made an impact on their business. And in this roundtable, we have different businesses. We have hospitality, we have construction, we have finance, services, maintenances, and all of them, at the end, they have this. What happened? Their cost went up. Many of the contracts were on hold for some months until some new comes. And then it's hold, and then it's up. And the bottom line is very low cash flow. So there is a lot of uncertainty. The word uncertainty. Now, somebody mentioned immigration. Other people, especially workers, were afraid to go out and look for a job. So some construction companies didn't have all the workers. And 90% of those business owners are willing to sponsor workers carrying TIN numbers. Thank you, and something can be done. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Jessica Galen. I have a cheese shop in Dallas Ferry called Gloomy Cheese and Provisions. Nice to see you. I just wanted to add some additional texture to this really important discussion about the economics, which is that we've spent so much time in New York State, so much money, so much effort investing in downtowns and downtown revitalization, and I wanted to just also remind everyone that the impact on the special and particular nature of our independent small businesses is so at risk with all of these impacts. A couple of things that have come up in the cheese world. For example, Switzerland had a 39% tariff on, we imposed a 39% tariff for some reason on Swiss cheeses and other items from Switzerland. Switzerland is, of course, a very important, Switzerland is a very important cheese exporter to the U.S. We are one of their most important markets. They have so many traditional cheeses that are just cannot be made anywhere else. They are not widgets, of course. And farmers actually started slaughtering cows because the American market dropped out. Now we've heard as of this week, apparently it's going down to 15, but again, who knows what's going to happen with that, so that's a huge amount of uncertainty. There's also the cultural element of supporting the small cheesemakers even in the US. There was a story in the Times a few weeks ago about the Northeast Kingdom in Vermont, where there's a really important cheesemaker that has been largely supported by Canadian tourists who have just stopped coming because they don't want to support the US. Not that they don't want to support their cheesemaker, they don't want to cross the border. So that means that cheesemaker has less flexibility and is producing less cheese and may have to cut some staff, may need to reduce their farm size, et cetera, et cetera. So when we think about it's of course the economic impact to us, but if our communities want these independent businesses in our downtowns and want them to not just be copycat businesses of the few producers who manage to make it through these rough seas, then we do have to think about ourselves as part of that global story of these special products that can't be replicated here. Thank you.
Thank you. So it was fabulous to get the perspective of not just B2C, but B2B. I think you're probably a little bit of both. But what we're going to do is Ash and I have received your questions, and we will spend probably around the next 15 minutes trying to address as many as we can. I'm going to start, and we'll take turns. But what we're hearing so much, and that it's so important for us to hear the stories of the small business owners, because that's what's real. And the more we talk about the stories, the more we can pull together and try to solve the problem. There are things we can control, and there are things we cannot. So I like to think about the things we can control. At TAP, we work with small businesses and help them plan both operationally and financially for tariffs as they've been imposed. But what I'd love to do is to ask both Ellen and Peter for advice for small businesses. And what are you doing? What are you doing differently? How are you thinking about things differently? What are the most important things for a small business to do as they continue to navigate this landscape?
He always makes me go first. Well, at Penny Lake in February of 2025, I said, oh my gosh, we're going to have a trade war. This is going to be terrible. And although I make ice cream, so many of our ingredients like sugar and whatnot don't come from the United States. And I had no idea really quite what to do. So I went through every recipe I had. I went through every flavor we sold. I called ones that I thought just weren't performing well enough. I called ones that I knew that would be simply too expensive to carry through in 2025. And then I figured out ways to take down the ingredients cost as best I could. And then I assumed 25% cost of ingredients across the border, and which wound up being terribly low. And then I raised my prices ever so slightly to accommodate for some of it. That was the best I could do. In January and February, there are no lines at the ice cream shop with all the snow, so I have time to fool around with everything from ingredients, cost to operation expenses, and that is how I hit 2025 running. What I noticed immediately was that people complained about the price increase, which is something that I hadn't seen too much of before, but really started to see it now. And I think people are complaining about price increases now simply because everything has increased in price. So when they come into the ice cream shop, they're like, this ice cream is $6 now. Well, but yes, but you're paying more for other things too. It's not just us. The only advice I can really give is to constantly keep an eye on your numbers. And it does not matter how much you love something that you make or a service that you offer or something that you provide. You should not be you should not be in love with it so that it causes a financial hit. You should be ruthless in cutting anything that needs to be cut. That's how I've been facing this time.
Thank you, Anna. I remember we're not in this alone. We've grabbed all our vendors, and are you a vendor or are you a trusted advisor? Pick. You can't be both. Our coffee company, and we love them, they called us with 2 weeks' notice, 33% increase in coffee. We have four city organic cafes. We buy over $70,000 of coffee a year. I would have gone to close to $100,000 for coffee. Holy cow! We negotiated with them. How do we work this out? The packaging is in 1 pound. I don't care. You have beautiful packaging. I'm not doing anything with it. Give me a 2 kilo bag, brown, with a sticker on it. You're making a delivery every week to 6 locations. How about 1 a month? We'll take care of the deliveries. We're going to our sites anyway. Our vendors are phenomenal. Call everybody up. Call Con Ed. Call your vendors. Call everybody. They are part of the solution. They are not the problem. If they are, next.
I told you they're awesome. Say advice.
Awesome, great. So we have 2 questions here. One specifically for you, Bashir, and then we have one for the 2 other fellows. Okay, so I'll read the first one, the 2 of you. Many nonprofits and arts organizations function as a small business. We are facing rising costs from tariffs on equipment and materials at the same time. The federal cultural and arts funding is being eliminated. How is Congress thinking about the cumulative impact of the trade policy and federal funding changes on nonprofits and cultural institutions that support the local economy but don't have the pricing flexibility of private businesses?
That's a loaded question. I think when the economy is not doing well, people don't give. And that's again the snowball effect of the economic crisis we are in. And I think this is where I will encourage the foundations to give more. We in higher ed, we are faced exactly with the same problem. At higher ed, we are trying to, the impact of the federal government policy, as it's devastating, because one, we have increased costs, right, and we are not for profit, and we depend so much now on gift, and so we have to build more relationship. I will encourage small businesses to, non-profit in particular, to reach out to their community and identify small donors or foundation who can be supportive of what they are doing. And I think there are people out there who just don't know the mission of non-for-profit. This is the time for you as a non-for-profit to maybe invest more in marketing. Cash flow is difficult, but I think you have to get yourself known more. Also leverage. As an academic institution, we, as Mercy, we are trying to build more relationship with small businesses, with non-for-profit. We have actually a large workforce. Our students, we have 9,000 students who are willing to work with you and to help you. So reach out to us, and we are going to be more than happy to put those students to use for you.
Yes, find new stakeholders. Yes.
Those are great ideas, and I would also leverage what Ellen and Peter said. My experience in nonprofits is I've been a member, and I once tried to get a nonprofit that's a jazz center to issue jazz bonds. And what I would say is, I think it's important to think more like a small business. Understand your own supply chain. Understand what it is, how to optimize the funding that you are receiving, and perhaps how to reposition what you give back to the community so that it's more appreciated. Not that it isn't appreciated now, but rethink.
Could you elaborate more about the understanding the supply chain is very important?
Well, I was listening to both what Peter and Ellen were saying, and Ellen talked about, first review the raw ingredients, which ones are going to be most impacted, right? That's the first step of the supply chain. And then ultimately look at what's selling and what's not, and every point in between, so that when you're selling your ultimate product, you have control over that supply chain. So that was the first one, and then Peter added, work with your vendors. because the members of the supply chain are institutions that are struggling as you are. So it's all part of your own supply chain. For a nonprofit, your members, the people who come to speak, the people who donate, the large donors as opposed to the small member donors.
Yes.
And from a business mindset perspective, cash is king. Cut as many expenses that you don't need. Become very efficient. Operate as a business. And just buy time. Hopefully, a year from now, we're in a different situation.
Thank you. Okay, so now for your question. It is expected that this Supreme Court ruling will unleash a wave of litigation, particularly from large businesses engaged in large law firms. In this era of ever-escalating costs, what about small business owners who may be weary about undertaking the cost of the litigation? Do you foresee class action lawsuits, nonprofits providing free or reduced services, and law school clinics getting involved?
So a couple of things. It's interesting to think, will large businesses go to large law firms? Some of those large law firms were enlisted by the Trump administration to cut some of these tariff deals. They have conflicts. They also cut deals with the administration, and it's not clear they're going to want to be involved in trying to get money back through the tariffs. So I think it's actually an opportunity for businesses to sign up with some of the firms that have stood up to the administration and give them your business if you can afford that. But remember, if you are in a position to try to seek claims, you can work out an arrangement with a firm to have them work on contingency, that they only will get a portion of how much they get for you. And firms should be willing to do that in this instance. For small businesses can also pool together. I don't know that they could bring class actions, but they could pool together and go to a firm and say, you can do the work for this coalition of small businesses, and you can take a percentage, but you're going to take a smaller percentage of all of ours than you would normally take, because we're bringing so much business to you. There are also some law school clinics. Albany Law School has one, Columbia Law School has one, NYU and Brooklyn and CUNY all have small business clinics. Whether any of them are doing this sort of work, I honestly don't know. But I do think, think about supporting, firms. And I could make some referrals if people are interested. You could talk to me afterwards. But, try to pool together if you think you have claims and go together to firms and shop around. Maybe each of you individually might not be able to attract a firm that would be willing to do this, but together you might be able to find some local firms that might do it if enough of you come together.
Thank you.
We'll each take one more question, and then we'll all be available after the discussion to talk and to hear from you. But the thesis in a lot of the note cards here was how, when we talk so much about the importance of access to capital for small business owners, and then we're hearing about the pressures on margins. The question is, how are tariffs going to continue, is it impacting the ability to access capital? And I'll start because we at TAP partner with lenders all over the country. And the idea is that capital isn't enough. You need to have that business advisory to make sure that when you access capital, you deploy it strategically. And so when we're living in an environment where our cost structure is so pressured, our margins are so thin, that compounds the problem of getting yourself loan ready. I wonder, I'm going to ask my two panelists, I don't know if they in particular have considered accessing capital, but there's been a lot of conversation about it, and capital and consulting should be intertwined. but if either of you have had conversations or have need, could you talk about how you do that in this tariff environment?
Well, I can start by saying that I was actually introduced to the Acceleration Project by Community Capital, our local CDF5. Back in 2019, I went to them and I said, I have this opportunity, there's this growth opportunity, there's this business plan, I need X amount of money. And they put me through my paces because their answer was, small business owners come in all the time and they say, we need X. And the answer is, maybe you don't need $200,000, maybe you need $100,000 and a price increase, or maybe you need $400,000, you need to buy this building. And they actually help you with their consultants that they work with, figure out what you're really strategically going to do with the money so you can use it efficiently, quickly, and of course pay it back fast. That being said, other than a community capital loan, I hadn't really accessed capital before. I'd gotten a couple of small grants in 2020, but I had a couple of investors and it was otherwise self-funded, just kind of chugging along. And in 2024, I said, you know what I've never had is a line of credit. I should go get a line of credit. And I do all my banking at Chase, right? And that's where you would think to go. And I do my personal banking at Chase. And Chase said that even though I have my mortgage with them and my personal bank accounts and all of these bank accounts with them, they said they would only give me a line of credit if I handed over my EIDL loan, my SBA loan that I'm sitting on, that was a 30-year term at 3.75%. They wanted to put it in an adjustable rate at 18 months, and only then would they give me a line of credit. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you're ripping me off, I'll stick with what I've got. But what I do see, knowing small business owners across the country, is that they will instead lean on things like merchant advances. You'd be surprised how many phone calls Penny Lick Ice Cream Company gets in a day about small business lines of credit and small business loans from companies and firms we've never heard of before. But often they are not loans, they are lines of credit, they're a merchant advance. And those can have really, really high interest rates. And small businesses don't know what they're getting into until it's far too late. But I know a lot of people use Square as a payroll processing provider, as a point of sale, and they will offer you a merchant advance loan. Theirs is much more regulated than it used to be, but people are like staring at their Square accounts every day, hoping to be offered money. That is what a lot of small businesses are doing right now, because they're just looking for a way to cover the deficit caused by things like tariffs and inflation.
You'd be surprised, back to my comment of trusted advisors, you'd be surprised. Our vendors, we've opened up a couple cafes, it's gonna be a little tough. Can I get 30, 90, 60? We literally gave them $50,000 worth of equipment, and I said, can I give you 5 checks of $10,000 up front, and every month you cash it? Do you know what they said to me? Don't worry about it. Give us 1 check. Pay us when you can. I gotta tell you, your vendors, your banks, Putnam County Savings Bank in Westchester, we went from a couple of big banks. He's a trusted advisor. He understands so much more of banking and finance than I ever will. I've asked him a couple of questions about credit lines and financing and our real estate. Their solutions, it's phenomenal. Your vendors, the banks, your equipment people have a lot more resources because they can ask, because I asked my equipment company, how could you do that? Because we asked our people. So it's the domino and the compounding of interest. We all want to sell you more equipment. We all want to do more business with you, Peter. And this is how we do it. I'm looking for the yes, not the no.
Thank you so much. We want to leave off with making sure that people can be able to navigate this information age or system that we're consuming every day. And so it's very important that we consume accurate information on this specific topic. So the question here is, are there any federal resources for small business owners to learn about or track the status of on tariffs on different products or countries? And we don't have to just limit on federal resources. We can also look beyond that. Like, for instance, I would use the World Economic Forum website to help track this, and other IOs. So, yes, what do you guys think?
I'm an educator, and so, again, I'm more than happy to meet with you and use the resources that we have available at Mercy to be able to support you. This is where we want to go. We actually want to build more relationship with entrepreneurs. So I'm more than happy to work with you, because ultimately our students are going to work for you. And the earlier we build those type of relationships, the better. And I really want to be grateful to one of such entrepreneurs with whom we are working. Harvita, for example, Alex is here, has 4 or 5 students every year. And these students are phenomenal. And I think it's a win-win. With Harvita, our students are trained, and then it has a workforce that is more affordable, and it's a win-win. So I think this type of relationship is really beneficial to everybody. That's what, as an educator, I would offer to you.
Thank you so much for bringing Mercy College to us.
I can't replicate that, sorry. And I'm not a good resource in terms of the question that you asked. Ash, may I talk about financing instead from the other side? Because the last time I got a loan was for my business. Was in 2018, and it was tied to my mortgage, which was okay. I had a lot of equity in my mortgage. But I am in the business of credit analysis. And I can tell you that there are some things that every small business owner should really know. You don't need to know how to compute, to price a loan, but you need to know the different styles of lending a little bit. Are you borrowing for working capital? Are you borrowing for a project? And now I know that with tariffs, we're really talking about working capital. But this word uncertainty is such a killer. Anybody that you're talking to, if they're serious as a lender, and not all banks really want to lend. We had our loan cut. I will tell you a story. Can I tell you a quick story? We were advising the FDIC on how to recoup their damages after the global financial crisis. And I didn't invoice them. And the banks decided to cut my line of credit. And so I said, don't do that. And I started walking in with checks of $100,000, $150,000. They said, you're going out of business. I said, come on, this is the United States. This is the AAA, and these are my checks. What are you doing? But that was it. That was the end of my line of credit. The other thing I want to tell you as a story is that I have helped small business lenders monetize part of the loans that they have. There are parts of our capital markets that are rigid and they don't work. And there's nothing you can do about that. But the thing that you can do on your own terms, again, is to understand your supply chain, get a little bit more familiar with how lending works, and use your intuition about whether people are getting to yes or to no.
Yes. Thank you. Nelson, resources.
I do think the press releases, executive orders, that's where you're going to see the latest up-to-date information. I think you're also going to see, and this is a little unfortunate, I think you're also going to see some companies emerge that are buying claims from from importers of record, that they're paying percentage of what an importer's claim might be, so that people can get some cash right away. But it's going to be pennies on the dollar. Those resources are probably going to be available pretty soon, if that's something that someone needs to turn to, unfortunately.
I'm a strong believer, let's not let the crisis go to waste. This is an opportunity for you as an entrepreneur to be more efficient. If you have to be educated on AI, this is the time to do it.
Yes.
One last thing. I would urge you also to urge your elected officials, one of whom is in the room, that Congress can, as I mentioned briefly before, Congress can set up a fund, capitalized by $175 billion, which would far exceed the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund, the Camp Lejeune Fund, the Deepwater Horizon Fund, and the money is there, and we have paid it. So that you wouldn't have to turn to attorneys, that you could have a simple facility where these applications could be made and a special master could make the assessment. There's already 1,000 lawsuits trying to claw back some of this money. There's going to be many more. Congress can do this immediately, and I hope that people consider doing so.
Thank you so much. Ideas, opportunities, where we can find information. I want to also underscore this too. On a normal day, you would probably find information on the State Department or the International Trade Administration or the Export-Import Bank as far as how to, information on tariffs in countries as far as what's going on. But unfortunately, the misinformation, disinformation is at a peak right now. So, I would again recommend going to your representative or your elected official, your member of Congress to figure out that information and others like Mercy College. Thank you.
Great information. And there are resources. We all are here to be supportive and so that you're not navigating alone. So what I'd love to do now is extend enormous thanks to Congressman Latimer as he comes up to make final remarks. As he's walking, I want to say his team did an incredible job pulling this together, and I'm going to read their names as he's walking. Michelle Gawanter, Ellen Hedricks, Rob Cobb, Jeremy Hoffner. They have spent countless hours with us making sure that we were going to bring you really important content. Congressman.
Jane, Asha, I'd like the members of the panel to stand up, and I'd like for us to greet them with applause for their outstanding contribution. Please stand. Thank you both. We're deeply indebted to each of you, and to those of you who were here, those of you who spoke as well with questions. You can sit. If I walk out of here with one single factoid that I remember, it's Ellen explaining to me that what was $90 worth of chocolate is now $220 worth of chocolate. And if that isn't a direct example in my head, now I hope nobody tells my doctor that I still eat chocolate ice cream. They're not supposed to, but it's delicious. And when I go to Peter and Karen's Sam's and Getney Way for the next time that I join you for lunch or dinner, I'll look at the items on the plate wondering how much you're having to eat for providing it at the same price that I had the last time, not knowing the component pieces. I want to thank, once again, my team who's here, Michelle, Ellen, and all my staff members. Please stand up. They put a lot of hard work. Rob Cox, Jeremy Hoffman, Hannah, Daphne, Kelly, and the whole team put this together. As I said at the outset, I wanted this to be something where we talk of substance and people explain what their circumstances are. And you have on your table a note card that gives you the address and the phone number of our office. Hannah Haig is based in White Plains. Kelly Saunders based in Co-op City. If you want to maintain a dialogue individually, give them a call and exchange email addresses so that if you want to stay current on information as we have it available and you want to share an anecdote, stories like the Ellen example that I just gave of how these things are affecting, we welcome that. So either Hannah or Kelly or one of the people that answer the phone in our two offices will be happy to keep that link going. So this isn't just a one-shot, this is an ongoing dialogue. I know we have folks here who represent different chambers of commerces, and there's probably information you want to share with your members. Again, interact with Hannah and Kelly, and we're happy to figure out what that would look like. When I'm in the district, I try to attend when there's a Zoom Chamber of Commerce meeting. I can easily attend by Zoom, but in person, we'll have somebody come represent, be available to you, and take information, answer questions. I take away from this as the federal elected official in the room that we need to stop and have a moment of clarity about what's happening right now. When the president announced his tariffs, he called it Liberation Day in the White House garden. I think we need Deliberation Day, in which we think about what these impacts are, And instead of doing things because we have an ideological reason to do it, or because it has a geopolitical reason to do it, that we think about and have a report research what the actual impacts are now. We shut down a lot of parts of the federal government in the first 3 or 4 weeks of this administration. There was no analysis and no report. I spent 20 years in corporate America before I began my governmental career, and when I worked for subsidiaries of Nestle and ITT, there always was an objective analysis before we reorganized. It wasn't done by whim. You know, senior management and the board of directors and the parent companies of these institutions do not act on whim because there's a lot of money at stake. And so I think that is what I get out of this, that we need to reassess and clearly understand, not just for political reasons, but for economic reasons and for business reasons, what we're doing. And if there are geopolitical issues to be dealt with, then let's deal with them on the individual basis. We talked about the competition that we have with China. I think it's inescapable that we're competing with China in the years to come on a host of different platforms, technology, militarily, so on and so forth. If our goal is to be competitive with China amongst the countries of the world, is our short-term political strategy of forcing allies to take certain actions that are transactional, is that good in the long run? Am I likely to be your ally if we were friends and now you treat me in a transactional fashion? You know, those are the thoughts that have to be discussed. I go to Washington, picking up from this. And again, let me thank everybody for your role and your appreciation, and I encourage you to keep the dialogue going. And the panel members will be here in the middle about, I don't think we polished off all the snacks yet, and then there's serving some coffee. So thank you for coming. We wish you a very safe weekend and stay in dialogue. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you all.